The stars had never seemed so cold. Admiral Kang Doan stood on the bridge of the Un's Defiance, humanity's greatest warship. His hands were clasped behind his back. His uniform was perfect. His face showed nothing. But inside, his heart burned with a fire that 30 years of war could not put out. The holographic screen before him flickered. Blue light filled the dark bridge. Then the image became clear, and Doan saw the face of the enemy. High Speaker Morvith of the Galactic Council stared at him with 6 cold eyes. The alien was ancient. His gray skin hung loose on his thin frame. He had lived for 2,000 years and had watched 17 species disappear from the galaxy. He had ordered the death of billions. And now he smiled. Admiral Kung Morvith said. His voice was smooth like oil. The Council has been generous. You offer humanity a chance to survive. You should be grateful. Doan said nothing, simply waited. The peace terms appeared on the screen beside Morvith's face. Doan read them slowly. Each word felt like a knife in his chest. Humanity would give up all colonies. Every world they had built, every station they had constructed, every dream they had chased among the stars would be taken away. Humans would return to Earth and stay there forever. Humanity would destroy all warships. The fleet that Doan had spent his life building, the ships that had protected human worlds, would be melted down to nothing. Humanity would accept genetic monitoring. Council scientists would watch human reproduction. It would decide who could have children and who could not. Humanity would accept permanent oversight. Council observers would live on Earth forever. They would watch everything, control everything. This was not peace. This was slavery with a different name. You have 1 week to accept, Morvith said. If you refuse, the Council will finish what we started 30 years ago. We will burn Earth until nothing remains, not even ash. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent. Captain Essio Hadjin stood beside her admiral. She was young, but her eyes were old. She had lost her entire family when the Council burned the colony on New Busan. She had been 16 years old. She had watched from an escape pod as her world turned to fire. Sir, she said quietly, what will we do? Doan did not answer immediately. He looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth waited for news. 8 billion people waited to learn if they would live as slaves or die as free people. We will let the Assembly decide, he said finally. That is the human way. 3 days later, the United Earth Assembly met in Geneva. The Great Hall was full. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in their seats. The air was thick with tension. Everyone knew what was at stake. Foreign Minister Park Eunice stood at the podium. She was 50 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent her whole career trying to find peace with the Council. She had failed. Not because she was weak, but because the Council did not want peace. They wanted submission. These are the terms, she said, her voice steady. She read each condition aloud. With each word, the anger in the room grew hotter. When she finished, the hall exploded into noise. People shouted, some cried. Some cursed in languages that had survived for thousands of years. Then Representative Choi Soon-wha stood up. Soon-wha was old. He walked with a cane. His hands shook with age. But his voice was strong. It carried across the hall like thunder. Silence, he said. And somehow everyone obeyed. He walked slowly to the center of the room. Every eye watched him. Every ear listened. I am 93 years old, he began. I remember a time before the Council found us. I remember when we looked at the stars with wonder, not fear. I remember when we dreamed of meeting other life in the universe. We thought we would find friends. We found monsters instead. He paused. His old eyes swept across the room. The Council says we expanded too quickly. They say we were a threat. But what was our crime? We built colonies. We grew food. We raised children. We lived. That was our crime. We dared to live. His voice grew stronger. They burned New Sol. 3 million dead. They destroyed the stations at Jupiter. 500,000 dead. They poisoned the waters of New Busan. The children died first. Always the children. Tears rolled down his wrinkled cheeks, but he did not stop. And now they offer us peace. They offer us chains. They offer us a cage. He slammed his cane against the floor. The sound echoed through the hall. I say no. Say we did not crawl from the mud of ancient Africa to become slaves. We did not survive ice ages and plagues and wars and our own foolishness to kneel before aliens who see us as insects. Our ancestors looked at impossible mountains and crossed them. They looked at endless oceans and sailed them. They looked at the sky and conquered it. His voice rose to a shout. We are human. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. We do not give up. If they want to destroy us, let them try. But we will not go quietly. We will not go gently. We will fight with every breath, every heartbeat, every drop of blood in our veins. The hall erupted. People rose to their feet. They cheered. They wept. They embraced each other. President Baekjun watched from her seat. She was calm. She had known what the answer would be before the vote. She had felt it in her bones. Humanity would never accept these terms. It would rather die standing than live kneeling. The vote was held. Every nation, every representative, every voice, the result was unanimous. Humanity rejected the Council's peace that night. Admiral Kang Do-won received the news on the bridge of the Defiance. He read the message 3 times. Then he looked at Captain Seo Hajin. Send a message to all ships, he said. Tell them to prepare. The war is not ending. It is just beginning. Haji nodded. Her eyes were bright. Her jaw was set. Admira. As she turned to go, Do-won called out to her. Hajin. She stopped and looked back. We may all die, he said simply. She smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had already lost everything and had nothing left to fear. Then we will die free. She walked away. Do-won turned back to the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council was waiting for humanity's answer. They expected submission. They expected fear. They did not know humans very well. He smiled. Let them come. High Speaker Morvith sat on his throne of black stone. Round him the council chamber stretched for 1,000 meters. 12 species. 12 ancient civilizations. 12 voices that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had expected humanity to submit. Every young species did. It was the natural order. The strong ruled. The weak obeyed. This was how the universe worked. When the message arrived from Earth, Morvith opened it with confidence. He expected to see humans begging for mercy. He expected to see them on their knees. Instead, he saw the face of President Baekjun. She was not young. Her black hair had turned white. Lines marked her face, but her eyes were clear and sharp. She did not look afraid. She looked like a woman who had made a decision and would not change her mind. We have received your terms, she said. Her voice was calm. It's calm. We reject them. Morvith leaned forward. Around him, the other council members stirred with confusion. This had never happened before. Furthermore, June continued, humanity has a message for the Galactic Council. We are broadcasting this on every frequency, through every relay, to every corner of the galaxy. Let every species hear what we have to say. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice filled the chamber like a storm. For 30 years you have hunted us. You burned our colonies and called it justice. You killed our children and called it necessary. You tried to erase us from existence because we dared to dream of the stars. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Morvith, though she was speaking from light years away. You called us a threat species. But what threat did we pose? It did not attack you. We did not steal from you. We simply lived. We built homes. We raised families. We reached for the future. And for that, you decided we must die. She stood taller. You offered us peace. But your peace is not peace. It is the peace of the prison. It is the peace of the grave. You want us to give up our ships, our colonies, our freedom, our very blood. You want us to become pets, slaves, things to be controlled and monitored and eventually forgotten. Her voice grew harder. We say no. Morvith felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear, real fear. Today humanity does not just reject your terms. Today humanity declares war, not for conquest. We do not want your worlds, not for revenge. Though you have given us every reason to hate you. We fight because some things matter more than survival. Freedom matters. Dignity matters. The right to live without chains matters. She leaned closer to the camera. You think you know us? Do you think we are young and weak and foolish? You think we will break? You are wrong. We're the species that survived ice ages with nothing but fire and courage. We're the species that crossed oceans in wooden boats. We're the species that conquered disease and hunger and reached the stars with our own hands. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but somehow it was louder than a shout. We do not know how to give up. We do not know how to surrender. You can burn our worlds. You can destroy our ships. You can kill billions of us. But you will never break us. Never. Because as long as one human breathes, we will fight. As long as one human heart beats, we will resist. As long as one human voice can speak, it will say the same word, no. She straightened and clasped her hands before her. To the Galactic Council, we say this. Come for us if you dare. We will meet you among the stars. We will fight you in the darkness between worlds. We will stand against you until the last human falls. Then her expression changed. She looked past Morveth, past the Council, to something greater. And to every other species in this galaxy who has suffered under Council rule, we say this, you are not alone. We know you are watching. We know you are afraid. We know the Council has told you that resistance is impossible, that obedience is the only path, that hope is foolish. Her voice became gentle, almost kind. We are here to tell you they are wrong. The Council is not all-powerful. They can be hurt. They can be defeated. They are strong because you believe they are strong. But belief can change. Hope can grow. And a single spark can start a fire that burns across the galaxy. She placed her hand over her heart. We do not ask you to fight today. We understand your fear. But know this, when you are ready, when you find your courage, when you decide that freedom is worth any price, humanity will be there. We will stand with you. We will fight beside you. We will win together. She took a breath. This message will end now, but its echo will never fade. Remember this day. Remember that when the galaxy told humanity to kneel, we stood. Remember that when the powerful demanded submission, the weak said no. Remember that freedom is not given by masters. It is taken by those brave enough to reach for it. Her final words rang like a bell. We are humanity. We are not afraid, and this war has only just begun. The screen went dark. For a long moment, the council chamber was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Lord Kareth of the Varan Empire stood. He was a warrior, covered in scars from 100 battles. He had never lost. He had conquered 20 worlds for the council. He had crushed every rebellion he had ever faced. They are fools, he said. We will destroy them in a week. Morveth did not respond. He was thinking of something that happened long ago when he was young. He had watched a small creature fight a much larger one. The small creature had no chance. Everyone knew it would die, but it fought anyway. It bit and scratched and refused to surrender. In the end, the larger creature killed it, but not without wounds. Deep wounds. Humanity was that small creature. They could not win. It was impossible, but they would make the council bleed. Morveth looked at his fellow rulers. They were confident. They were proud. They had ruled for 10,000 years and had never faced true resistance. They did not understand what was coming. Across the galaxy, the president's message spread like wildfire. On slave worlds and occupied planets, in prisons and work camps, beings who had never known freedom heard. The words of a human woman who refused to kneel, and something stirred in their hearts, not rebellion. Not yet, but something older and more powerful. Hoped a young worker on a mining planet far from Earth heard the message. He had been born in chains. His parents had been born in chains. His grandparents had been born in chains. He had never imagined any other life, but that night, for the first time, he looked at the stars and wondered, what if? On 1,000 worlds, 1,000 beings asked the same question. What if? And the galaxy began to change. Deep in the asteroid belt, between Mars and Jupiter, there was a secret. For 20 years it had been hidden from the Council, from the galaxy, even from most of humanity. It was called Project Horizon. General Yun Taiho walked through the massive underground base. He was 60 years old with a shaved head and a scar across his left eye. He had lost that eye fighting the Council at the Battle of New Tokyo. He had lost many things in this war. His wife, his son, his faith in peace. But he had never lost hope. "How are we doing?" he asked. Chief Engineer Han Minji looked up from her computer screen. She was small and thin, with messy hair and dark circles under her eyes. She had not slept in 3 days. She had been working on Project Horizon since she was 22 years old. Now she was 44. Half her life had been given to this project. "The fleet is ready," she said. "All 63 ships." Taiho nodded. 63 ships was not many. The Council had thousands. But these 63 ships were different. "Show me," he said. Minji led him through long corridors carved into the asteroid rock. They passed workers and soldiers, all of them tired, all of them determined. These were the best minds humanity had. The best engineers, the best scientists, the best soldiers. They had been chosen for this mission and had accepted knowing they might never see their homes again. They reached a massive window that looked out into a hidden cavern. And there, floating in the darkness, was humanity's hope. The ships were beautiful, sleek and deadly, like sharks made of metal and light. They were smaller than Council warships, but that was by design. They were faster, much faster. "We studied every piece of Council technology we could capture," Minji explained. "Their shields, their weapons, their engines. We took it apart. We learned how it worked, and then we made it better." Taiho raised his eyebrow. "Better." Minji smiled for the first time in weeks. "The Council has not changed their technology in 3,000 years. Why would they? Nothing in the galaxy could challenge them. They became lazy, comfortable. They stopped improving." She pointed at the nearest ship. "Our engines are twice as fast as theirs. Our weapons hit 3 times harder. Our shields can take damage that would destroy a Council cruiser. And we have something else. Something they have never seen." "What?" "Jump drives that can be used inside a gravity well." Taiho stared at her. This was supposed to be impossible. Every species in the galaxy knew that you could not jump to faster than light speed near a planet or a sun. The gravity would tear your ship apart. It was a law of physics, how? He asked. Minji shrugged. A young engineer figured it out. He was just 20 years old. He looked at the math and saw something everyone else had missed. He died at the Battle of Ganymede before he could see his invention work. But his work lives on. His gift to humanity. She looked at the fleet with pride. We can appear anywhere, disappear anywhere, strike and vanish before they know what hit them. The Council has never faced an enemy like us. 3 days later, Captain Seo Hajin stood on the bridge of the UN's Ghost. It was the newest ship in the fleet, the fastest, the deadliest, and it was hers. 500 volunteers served under her command. They had all chosen to be here. They had all accepted that this mission would probably kill them, but they had come anyway. Admiral Kang Doan's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired but determined. Captain Seo, he said, the Council's forward base at the Nero cluster is preparing to launch an attack on Earth. 40 warships. If they reach our home, billions will die. Shh, nodded. Our orders. Stop them. By any means necessary. Understood. Doan paused. His voice became softer. Hajin, if you fail, Earth falls. But if you succeed, the galaxy will see that the Council can be beaten. You carry the hopes of humanity on your shoulders. I am sorry for that burden, Hajin smiled. It was the same cold smile she had shown before. The smile of someone who had lost everything and feared nothing. Do not worry, Admiral. We will not fail. And if we do, we will make them pay such a price that they will fear humans for 1,000 years. The transmission ended. Hajin turned to her crew. They were young. Most of them had been children when the war started. They had grown up knowing nothing but conflict. But their eyes were bright. Their hands were steady. "You know what we face?" she said. 40 Council warships. We have 12. The odds are against us. The galaxy expects us to die. She stood taller. But we are human. We have always faced impossible odds. When our ancestors left Africa, they faced endless wilderness. When they crossed the oceans, they faced storms and monsters. When they reached for the stars, they faced the void itself. And they never gave up. Never. Her voice rang across the bridge. Today, we show the Council what that means. Today, we teach them to fear the small blue planet they tried to destroy. Today, we prove that humanity will never be erased. She raised her fist. For Earth. For Earth. The crew roared back. The jump drives activated. Space twisted, and 12 human ships vanished from the asteroid belt. They appeared at the Nera cluster without warning. The Council fleet was caught completely off guard. They were preparing for a leisurely trip to burn. Earth. They never expected to be attacked. Hajin's voice was calm as she gave orders. Target their command ship first. Fire everything. The Ghost's weapons blazed. Beams of energy that burned hotter than stars struck the Council flagship. Its shields that had never been broken, cracked like glass. The ship exploded. Panic spread through the Council fleet. They tried to form a defensive line, but human ships were everywhere at once. They jumped in, fired, jumped out, appeared somewhere else. It was like Fee. Getting ghosts. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Council threw everything they had at the human fleet. But every time they locked onto a target, the ship was already gone. Human weapons struck from unexpected angles. Council ships burned and broke. When it was over, 40 Council warships had been reduced to 13. The rest were debris floating in space. The human fleet had lost 3 ships. 18 lives. Hajin stood on her bridge, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. She had not expected to survive. None of them had, but they had won. She opened a channel to all frequencies. She wanted the galaxy to hear. This is Captain S.E.O. Hajin of the United Earth Navy. The Council's attack fleet has been destroyed. The Nera cluster belongs to humanity. Let this be a message to the Council and to every species watching. We will not be erased. We will not be conquered. We will fight until the last star goes dark. She paused. Come for us if you dare. We will be waiting. Across the galaxy, the message spread. The Council could be beaten. The impossible had happened. A young species with a tiny fleet had shattered the myth of Council invincibility, and on 1,000 worlds. That small spark of hope grew into a flame. The news of Nera Cluster spread faster than light itself, in the slave mines of Kethos Prime. Workers whispered about the battle. 12 human ships against 40 Council warships. And the humans had won. It seemed like a fairy tale. A dream. But it was real. Ro Yunji heard the whispers and felt something stir in her chest. She was 32 years old. But she looked older. Life in the mines aged everyone quickly. Her hands were scarred from years of digging. Her back was bent from carrying heavy loads. She'd been born on Kethos Prime to human parents who had been captured when the Council destroyed the new Jeju colony. She had never known Earth. She had never known freedom. But she remembered stories, her mother. Before she died from the lung sickness that killed most miners, used to tell her about Earth, about blue skies and green forests, about oceans so vast you could not see the other side, about cities filled with light and laughter, about a world where humans were free. We will go back someday, her mother had said. Humans never give up. Remember that, Yunji. Never. Her mother had died believing those words. Now, after Nera Cluster, Yunji began to believe them too. She was not alone in the mines. In the processing plants, in the crowded sleeping halls, humans and other enslaved species began to talk. Quietly at first, then louder. They shared information. They made plans. They counted guards and weapons and escape routes. Yunji became their leader. She did not ask for the job. It simply happened. People looked to her for guidance. She had a calm voice and steady eyes. She was not afraid. Or if she was, she hid it well. One night, she gathered 50 rebels in an abandoned tunnel deep underground. They were a mix of species: humans, Cathor, Veltans, and others. All of them had chains. All of them wanted to be free. "Tomorrow," Youngji said, "a supply ship arrives from the Council homeworld. It carries weapons and food for the garrison. We take that ship," Cathori rebel spoke up. His name was Bereth, and he had lost his entire family to Council punishment squads. "The guards outnumber us. They have weapons. We have rocks and tools." Youngji nodded. "Yes, and we have something else." "What?" "Everything to gain and nothing to lose." The room was silent. Then, slowly, heads began to nod. The uprising began at dawn. Youngji led the first attack. They struck the guard barracks while most soldiers were still sleeping. The fighting was brutal and bloody. Many rebels died, but more guards died. And by noon, the garrison had fallen. Youngji stood in the control room of the mining complex. Her clothes were torn and stained with blood that was not all hers, but her eyes were bright. She had never felt so alive. She activated the communication array and sent a message to the galaxy. "This is Rounji of Kethos Prime. The Council no longer controls this world. We are free." She paused, thinking of her mother, thinking of all the people who had died in chains. The humans fight not just for themselves, but for all who have suffered. "Rise with us. Fight with us. Be free with us." The message ended. But its effects had only begun. Within weeks, rebellions erupted across Council space. Slave worlds rose up. Occupied planets fought back. Species that had been conquered for centuries remembered what freedom meant and decided they wanted it again. Admiral Kongdoan watched the reports with amazement. The galaxy was burning with revolution, and humanity had lit the spark. He called a meeting of his senior officers. Captain Seo Hajin was there, along with General Yoon Tai-ho and Intelligence Officer Nem Wujin. "We need to unite these rebellions," Doan said. "Individually, they will fail. The Council is too powerful, but together, we might have a chance." Wujin nodded. He was a thin man, with a quiet voice and very observant eyes. His job was to know secrets, and he had found a very big one. "Admiral," he said, "I need to share something. My agents have uncovered information that changes everything." He activated a holographic display. Old images appeared. Images of worlds. Beautiful worlds filled with life and civilization. "These are the lost species," Wujin explained. "Before humanity, there were others. The Council called them threat species too. They were young and growing, like us. They were destroyed." The room was silent. 17 species, Wujin continued, erased from existence. Their worlds were sterilized. Their people were killed down to the last child. Their histories were erased. The Council made it as if they never existed. He showed more images. Cities reduced to ash. Oceans turned to poison. Mountains of bones. This is what the Council does to any species that might one day challenge them. This is what they planned for us. Total extinction. Hajin's hands had curled into fists. "How do we know this is real?" "We captured a Council archive ship," Wujin said. "Their own records. Their own reports. They documented everything. They were proud of what they did." Doan's face had turned to stone. He had known the Council was cruel. He had not known they were monsters. "We share this information with everyone," he said. "Every rebel. Every enslaved species. Every corner of the galaxy. Let them see what the Council really is." The truth spread like poison in reverse. It healed instead of harmed. Species who had accepted Council rule for thousands of years learned the truth about their masters. They learned that the Council was not a government, but a butcher. They learned that any species that showed too much promise was simply erased, and they decided that they would not be erased. The Liberation Alliance was born. Admiral Doan welcomed any species willing to fight. Ships arrived from 100 worlds. Soldiers arrived from 1,000 planets. The human fleet grew from dozens to hundreds to thousands. Royungji left Kethos Prime to join the alliance. She became a symbol of the uprising. The slave who had freed herself, the human who had never seen Earth but fought for it anyway, she stood beside Admiral Doan on the bridge of the Defiance. Together, they looked at the map of the galaxy. Council territory was marked in red. Liberated territory was marked in blue. There was more blue every day. We can win this, Yunji said. It was not a question. Doan nodded slowly. We can win this. But the price will be terrible. Many will die. Entire worlds will burn. The price of freedom is always high, Yunji said. But the price of slavery is higher.
Oh.
Doan looked at her. This young woman who had never known anything but chains. This fierce spirit who had chosen to fight when she had every reason to give up. Your mother would be proud, he said. Yanji's eyes glistened, but she did not cry. She had forgotten how to cry long ago. She always said humans never give up, she whispered. I intend to prove her right. The final battle was coming. Everyone knew it. The council would not accept defeat. They would gather every ship, every weapon, every resource they had. They would try to crush the rebellion once and for all, but for the first time in 10,000 years. They faced an enemy that was not afraid. Humanity. It started this war alone. They would finish it with the galaxy at their side. The sky above. Varathis had not known darkness in 10,000 years. The council homeworld was surrounded by defensive stations and orbital platforms that lit the night like artificial suns. It was the most protected world in the galaxy. The heart of an empire. The throne of 12 ancient species who had ruled the stars. Since before humanity learned to make fire, now that sky was about to burn. Admiral Kong Doan stood on the bridge of the Defiance. Around him, officers from a dozen species worked side by side. Humans, Cathori, Veltans, and many others. All of them free. All of them fighting for the same dream. The Liberation Alliance fleet spread across space like a sea of stars. 4,000 ships from 100 worlds. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in the history of the galaxy, and at its heart were the ships of Earth, still leading the way. Captain Seo Hajin commanded the strike force. General Yun Taiho coordinated ground operations. Rohunji led the former slave battalions. Intelligence officer Nam Wujane managed communications. They were the best humanity had. They were the best the galaxy had. Dohan looked at the holographic map. The council fleet was waiting for them at Varathis. 5,000 ships. The entire remaining might of 12 ancient civilizations. Every weapon, every soldier, every desperate hope of tyrants who knew they were fighting for their survival. They outnumber us, Wujin said quietly. They always have, Dohan replied. It never mattered before. It will not matter now. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. His voice would be heard by millions. Today we fight for every species that was silenced, for every world that was burned, for every child who was never born because the council decided their people had no right to exist. His voice grew stronger. The council has ruled for 10,000 years. They believed they would rule forever. They were wrong. Today, we prove that tyranny always falls. Today we prove that freedom always wins. Today we fight for the future. He raised his fist. Forward. Together as one. The fleet surged forward. The battle began in silence. In space, there is no sound. Ships burned and exploded without a whisper. Lives ended in the cold void between stars. But the violence was terrible beyond words. Council weapons struck Alliance ships. Shields flickered and failed. Crews died at their stations. But for every Alliance ship that fell, 2 Council ships were destroyed. The human technology that Chief Engineer Han Mingi had developed was proving its worth. Alliance ships danced between enemy fire, appearing and disappearing, striking where the Council was weakest. Hajin led the first wave. The Ghost and its sister ships cut through the Council formation like knives through paper. They targeted command ships and supply vessels, cutting the brain and the heart of the enemy fleet. "Push forward," Hajin shouted. "Do not let them regroup." On the ground, Yunji led her battalions against the Council's planetary defenses. These were former slaves, men and women and beings who had spent their lives in chains. Now they fought with the fury of the freed. They knew what the Council would do if they lost. There would be no surrender, no mercy. Only extinction. The battle raged for 3 days. By the end of the first day, both fleets had lost 1,000 ships. The space around Varathus was filled with debris and bodies. But neither side retreated. Neither side surrendered. This was a fight to the death. By the end of the second day, the Council's defensive stations had fallen. Alliance ground forces had established bases on Varathus itself. Fighting raged through the great cities of the Council. Buildings that had stood for millennia were reduced to rubble. By the end of the third day, Admiral Kung Doan knew they would win. It came at a terrible cost. General Yun Tai-ho died leading an assault on the Council's central command. Chief Engineer Han Minji died when her ship was destroyed defending a refugee transport. Thousands of humans. Tens of thousands of allies. They gave everything. But they won. The last Council ship surrendered at dawn on the fourth day. High Speaker Morvith was found hiding in an underground bunker. The being who had ordered the deaths of billions, who had erased 17 species from existence, who had tried to do the same to humanity, was pulled from his hole like a frightened animal. He was brought before Admiral Doan in chains. "You should kill me," Morvith said. His voice was still cold, still proud. "That is what we would do." Doan shook his head. "That is why you lost. You never understood us. We fight wars, but we do not enjoy cruelty. We seek justice, not revenge." He turned to his officers. "You will face trial. A fair trial. Let the galaxy see that we are better than the Council ever was." The war was over, but the work had just begun. 3 months later, President Baekjun stood before the new Galactic Assembly. She was old now, her white hair thin and her movements slow. But her eyes were as sharp as ever. Her voice was still strong. The assembly hall was filled with representatives from every species in the galaxy. No longer rulers and slaves. No longer conquerors and conquered. Equals. All of them equals. "We gather here today to build something new," June said. "Not an empire. Not a council of masters. But a true assembly of free peoples. Every species, young or old, will have a voice. Every world, great or small, will have a vote. No one will be erased. No one will be forgotten." She looked around the hall. She saw faces of every shape and color. She saw beings she had never imagined when she was a young woman on Earth, dreaming of the stars. 30 years ago, the Council declared war on humanity. They said we were a threat. They were right. We were a threat to their power. A threat to their tyranny. A threat to a galaxy ruled by fear. Her voice softened. We rejected their peace because it was not peace. It was submission. Today, we offer true peace. Not the silence of the conquered, but the harmony of the free. Not chains disguised as mercy, but liberty for all. She stepped back from the podium. Humanity did not fight this war to rule the galaxy. We fought so that no one would rule the galaxy. We fought so that every species could choose its own destiny. We fought for freedom, and now we share that freedom with everyone. The hall erupted in applause. Beings who had never known hope wept with joy. Species who had been enemies embraced as friends. In the crowd, Admiral Kong Doan watched with quiet pride. Beside him stood Captain Essio Hajin, still young, still fierce. And beside her stood Ro Yunji, the slave who had become a liberator. "We did it," Yunji whispered. She was crying. She had finally remembered how. Doan nodded. "We did. But we must never forget the price. So many dead. So many lost." "We will not forget," Hajin said. "Their sacrifice will be remembered as long as the stars burn." She was right. Centuries later, the story was still told. On distant worlds, children of 100 species learned about the small blue planet called Earth. They learned about a young species that had looked at impossible odds and refused to surrender. They learned about Admiral Kongduin and Captain Seo Hajin and Ro Yunji and all the others, who had given everything for freedom. They learned about the moment when humanity faced extinction and chose to fight in schools and homes, in temples and meeting halls. The old story was passed down through generations. It became legend. It became myth. But at its heart, it was always true. When the galaxy said kneel, humanity stood. When tyrants said obey, humanity said no. When the universe demanded surrender, humanity chose to fight, and the echo of that choice never faded. It rang through the centuries, through the millennia, through the endless ages of starlight and darkness. It reminded every species, everywhere, of a simple truth. Freedom is never given. It is taken by those brave enough to reach for it, and those who reach for it are never truly alone. On a world at the edge of the galaxy, thousands of years after the war, a young being looked up at the stars. It was a child, small and curious, wondering about the universe and its place in it. Its mother sat beside it and pointed at a tiny blue dot, barely visible in the vast darkness. "That is Earth," the mother said, "the home of the humans. They saved the galaxy once, long ago." "How?" the child asked. The mother smiled. "They refused to give up. They refused to kneel. They looked at the impossible and said one simple word." "What word?" The mother's voice was soft but fierce. "No." The child looked at the tiny blue dot for a long time. Then it smiled. "I want to be like them," it said. The mother held her child close and remembered their story. "And when the time comes, when you face your own impossible moment, remember what the humans taught us." "What?" "That hope is never foolish, that courage is never wasted, and that even the smallest voice can echo across the galaxy forever." The child looked at the stars and believed.